it tailors its learning style to each child's individual learning style. So how is that going to change education? How is this world going to change when every kid in the world has an internet connection from Starlink and an iPad and a free education?
Welcome back to Innovate and Overcome. I'm excited about the incredible story and the journey that we're going to walk through with our guest today. Now, this individual is recognized among Accounting Today's top 150 CPA and financial advisors, managing over $200 million in client assets. He's an investor and entrepreneur in several innovative environmental projects. We're going to talk a little bit about those today. He's also the founder of Dean Owen CPA. He's the only guy that I know with a flying car, and I'm excited to have Dean Owen on the show with us. Welcome, Dean, to the program.
Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah. Now, Dean, we met recently. We're a member of a similar network, and of course, I got the privilege to get to learn a little bit about this incredible flying car that you have. We're going to talk a little bit about that more as we get later in the show. But what most interested me when we sat down and we were having breakfast one day, you started to tell me a little bit about your journey and your story, and going all the way back to kind of that childhood environment, the environment you grew up in, which led you to transition into the military. And when I say transition, it was more like running away to the military to some degree. So
Yeah, it was not transition, it was evolution.
there you go.
Evolution.
What prompted that? What was the situation that was going on for you kind of early at that early stage of life that caused you to need to kind of get away, and that the military became the place where you could find a home again and move through life to the next phase of your life where we find you today?
The J.D. Vance story of the Hillbilly Elegy, it's on Netflix. It's a good story to watch. That was my life. I jokingly say J.D. Vance followed me around for 40 years, wrote a book and made a movie. Now he owes me royalties. But that was his story, raised in rural Western Kentucky. Lots of drug issues, lots of hollowed out families, hollowed out communities. My dad trying everything he could to get us out of desperate poverty. And eventually he did. But a mom who now I understand, but at the time I did not, and I couldn't understand the extreme emotionalism, and that was her weakness. We're all broken, and that was how she was broken, and I didn't appreciate that until long after she was passed. The drugs, the alcohol, and I just knew that I had to run. Something about me told me I had to run and get away. That there was nothing good was going to come out of that. And the military saved my life. It really did. I went into that. I was 18 years old and probably about a 14-year-old maturity level. Of course, I thought I was. I jokingly said I was 15, thought I was going on 30. So I had to figure stuff out on my own, and I did. Started learning figure out how to navigate that crazy family. We had a really bad snowstorm in '76, and we were out of school for about 2 weeks, and I managed to make about $2,000 as a 10-year-old shoveling snow. And I learned that in my house, work was honorable. So you better be at dinner every single night at 5 o'clock, unless you're working. Well, I'm running from a crazy family, so I just learned to work, And so anyways, I got towards the end of high school, and I knew that, it was going to go bad if I stayed. So I went to the National Guard first because I was afraid of commitment. I grew up and matured probably 3 or 4 years over the course of about 6 months, 9 months of training. Came home, and then the situation was just worse. So I literally went around to all the different branches of the military and said, who will send me to school for the longest? Because I knew I needed an education. I knew I didn't have the skills I needed to make it in life. And the Navy said, we'll send you to school for 4 years, sign a 6-year contract. In 2 years, you drop it and sign another 6-year contract, get a bonus. And I'm thinking 4 years of schooling, hey, why not? But I was so scared to death of having to go back home that no matter what it took, I was overweight kid, whatever I had to do to get to the top of my class and stay there, I was going to do. What I didn't realize is it was a technology revolution. Coopers and Lybrand, Price Waterhouse learned how to use laptops on audits, made everyone 50% more efficient. Their products figured out how to do accounting on the internet, made everyone 50% more efficient. And I think we're going to go through that technology change again. I think we're going to live that very soon. It won't hurt. It'll just change. So thinking that I was just the unlucky penny, I said, screw it, I'm going to go back to school. And the graduate school at SIU made an unbelievable offer for me to come back to school. They actually paid me to go. And one other guy, Henry Beverly, and I, we were teacher's pet. My choice. It's just we were combat veterans. We'd both been at big six firms. We'd both been auditors. We uh, both CPAs, so we had a lot in common. And really interesting. Last semester of grad school, we got told we had to take a class from that Arthur Anderson was teaching, and we called out the fraud that they were doing with Enron, and almost got ourselves kicked out of grad school. So at that time, I'm starting my accounting firm and trying to figure stuff out. As a kid, I was taught that God is always looking for a way to send you. He's looking for a reason to send you to hell. There's no love, there's no grace, there's no mercy. That's part that the rules-based, fear-based church that I was raised with. That's kind of like, I don't think I want to know God. I will never do enough to get him to pay a whole lot of attention to me. Just don't pay attention to bad people. Just leave me be. And that worked for a long time. It worked for a long time, about 35 years. And then there was a crisis. My running and hiding didn't work anymore. And I admitted a business coach, John, my pastor, and he kept leaning in. And finally one day I just broke and just said, okay, John, we're going to do it your way. That helped me get past a lot of the traumas, helped me understand stuff, helped me understand the world, helped me understand my parents. I didn't understand them when they were here, but I do now. Since that point with John, it's just been like rapid downloads of how to do things, why to do things, what to do, and just go start doing them. Everything from, 5 years I've been fighting a staffing crisis in the CPA world. It's a true crisis. And now I own an international talent search firm to bring folks from Mexico to America. My first guy will be here probably next month.
That's one way to solve a problem.
Every firearm I've got's been pointed at that problem and rapid fire and trying to kill it. But I think we've solved that problem now. And I'm increasing the quality of life for someone who I consider a brother in Christ and his wife. And I'm actually going to be able to improve their lives. And they live in an area that cartel's recently taking over. And and they know how to stay off the radar and not get in problems, but that's just not an environment. They don't want to raise children in that environment.
Right.
In Mexico, the cartels snatch the kids and use them as the drug mules because they won't get life in prison or executed if caught. And so I don't know. There's a lot of boxes being checked there and a lot of them are bigger than my staffing problem. And just the way that all came about is I met a guy in Houston, and over the course of 3 days, I met him in person, got on a stage giving out awards to the 40 most influential TikTokers in the Spanish-speaking trucking tribe. And this guy, Mundo, is their chief. And after that, I saw him again. We were down with Jen, a mutual friend in Houston, saw him again. The next Monday, he's showing up in my new shop because he's on his way to the local truck show. He asked if we could help. I was the only one that could bring my schedule, and I needed to be at that show. So the next day, I'm loading a hydrogen generator in the back of Mercedes and headed to Louisville, spend 3 days with him, he and his wife. He needs training because he wants a machine. So that Saturday, I said, I get you a machine, but you got to have training. I can't let you go without training. And he said, okay, I'll stop in your shop. I'll be there Monday and for training. So this is over a 3-week period of time. And so that next Sunday, he's at my house because I told him to stay at the house, and got to know him at a very, very deep level. And he's the one that had this idea of the staffing firm, but he needed a couple of pieces that it was very easy for me to give him. It didn't cost me anything. And and it comes to now I found out that he's got several factories in Mexico. He's got an accounting firm in Mexico. This guy fixes semi trucks for a living. That's what he does. And he's, I still haven't figured him out, but unbelievable relationship. So it's been a period, that just trying to figure out how did you just keep walking when you don't know where you're going. And I think that's what God teaches us to do things. He just tells you to start walking. And if you do that, good things happen.
It's interesting that, 35 years of running, as you kind of indicate, to find that through all that running, things were still materializing, still happening for you. And now you're in a position where you can see and recognize a collaboration opportunity that shows up almost out of thin air to solve now a problem that you've been having in one business. We're solving some problems for another individual. A great relationship is created, and the rising tide raises all boats to a large degree, because it sounds like this new business venture, which really just recently thrust upon you, is something that is is going to do much more than the problem you were seeking to solve, a staffing issue. And it's going to have that catalyst level effect for some of the good work that you want to do while you're here on this earth. Does that make sense, Dean?
Yeah, it does. I realize now, to be December 22, my church was going on a mission trip. And my pastor, so he'd gotten us on a Zoom call about some business deal with an orphanage in Mexico, and talking through that. And that night, I got on climbing in bed with my wife, and I said, "Well, what did you think, babe? There's some money on the table." She goes, "I don't worry about it. That's your lane. It's money. You'll take care of it." Okay. So she goes, "Why don't you go down there with them on the mission trip?" And I looked at her and I said, "Me go to Mexico with a church to a place where cartels are, and I can't carry a firearm? You're crazy." She said, "Well, just set on it and see what happens." I'm like, okay. You get hit by that 2x4, you got to go follow through. But yeah, that was life changing. It really was. I'm unbelievably glad I did that, because that put me in a whole different trajectory. But when we were there, women would come up and they'd ask for prayers so that to keep their 5, 6-year-old child from being snatched by the cartel. And I'm like, who in the world am I to how can I honor that request? Now I know. That's when I put me on that mission trip. He put me in that room with Amanda.
There you go. Ask and you shall receive to some degree. And with that in mind, we're going to be asking some more important questions of Dean when we come back after these important messages.